All right, everyone. This is a very, very exciting day because I'm interviewing Anne Hart, and she is just a woman after my own heart. We've met recently, and just hearing about all her adventures really got me intrigued. She's a skydiving instructor, a biplane wing walker. Anne, I didn't know you were a jazz pianist.
It's one of my happy places, playing the piano.
So great. We'll have to do a gig together sometime.
Yeah.
A scuba diver, barrel racer, historian, web developer, like you're leading global joy retreats, which is also another thing that I'm very fascinated by and also do. So lots and lots of things here with my guest, Anne. And I just want to also say, and actually let my viewers know, where are you right now? Where are you from?
Oh, I live most of the time in eastern Idaho and part of the time in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So I go back and forth over the pass. So in the beautiful Rocky Mountains.
Great. Well, I mean, it's hard to know where everybody's coming from right now because everyone's just on
Yeah.
Zoom doing these interviews, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We're in a little box.
Where are you and what time is it?
Right. Yeah.
So Anne Hart is known as the genius whisperer. She is the expert in quantum play, actually the developer of quantum play, which we're going to talk about today. Anne brings together leading edge research from neurophysiology, developmental psychology, quantum physics, energy medicine, integral theory, and spirituality to help high achieving business owners, leaders, and visionaries go beyond the confines of financial success and unfulfilling work to create vibrant lives of purpose, meaning, and joy. Wow. Take me there. Take me there. So please, with all of that, Anne does work with clients and students in 15 different countries. And that's just growing because you know what I think, and Anne, I'm going to give you the floor, the stage. I think that more and more in the times that we're having right now, we really need play. We need joy. We need to be able to get out of our own funks and push our ego to the side so that we can really live full and reach our potential. So please tell me a little bit more. Let's start with quantum play because you developed it. Tell me about quantum play.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to play with you today, Rebecca. It's so fun to be here. So, yeah, what I'll say is, I don't know when your viewers will be watching this. Some of them will be right after we record it. Some, this might be years down the road. But right now, at the time that we're recording this, we are really being confronted in our society with this epidemic of all of our past patterns of living and creating success based on what we thought we were supposed to do at the expense of our joy, at the expense of our souls. And there's this fragmentation that I call the work-play split. That's a phenomenon of the world we've inherited and the definition of success that we've inherited. And the work-play split simply says that your work is your priority. And then if there's any time left over, you play maybe at the end of the day, maybe on weekends, maybe take a vacation, or you just live your whole life doing work and then you retire.
And
so there's no, yeah, right. So there is no integration. And of course, what we're seeing from this is catastrophic, where we are killing ourselves of stress-related diseases, let alone, what everyone's calling the pandemic right now is a virus, but underneath that, the real virus is the fear and that lack of fulfillment that we've been living from that nobody talks about. Right. And that's what creates the conditions in which a virus can spread, because without that foundation, it just wouldn't be an issue. Mm-hmm. So here we are with this epidemic of what are we doing with our life where we've compartmentalized it. So my journey, I don't know, we can go in any different directions, but the short version I'll say is my journey started when I was confronted with that reality in my own experience of what am I doing with my life? This is not how I want to live. This is not how I want to raise my son. I certainly don't want my son to have this as a role model. This is when he was a brand new baby. And I made a very clear distinction said, from here on, I'm drawing a line in the sand. If it doesn't bring me joy, I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it doesn't light my soul on fire, it's not mine, period. And initially it was a very difficult path just because there was no role models and I didn't have a lot of guidance. Right. And so from that, my initial years of experimenting came the modality that I now call quantum play, because it was figuring out, how do I live from what I now call coherence and resonance, because we're speaking about the quantum field of energy, and living from that. There's a very distinct felt sense of aliveness when you are in coherence with your heart in your electromagnetic field and in resonance with the truth of who you are. It has a felt sense, and that becomes what I call our joy compass. So quantum play is a modality that helps you learn how to live in this very different way, instead of intellect, logic, reason, and what makes sense, what's the responsible path.
Yeah.
What is it that lights my soul on fire, and how can I create the life that lets me thrive without abandoning all those things that I feel responsible for, or the commitments I've made, all of that integration. So that's kind of the nutshell of what brings us here today.
Yeah. And I love that it's not a cookie cutter process, because everybody's joy will look different.
Totally.
Everybody's degree of risk taking will look different, but it's about finding what that is for you specifically. And that's what you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And also you mentioned something, if I may go there, to the disconnect between play on weekends or in the evenings or just when we have time, rather than being able to enjoy and have fun in our workplace. And as you know, that's what I do, is help people within their companies find joy there within their business, so that 9 to 5 can actually be fun as well.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset, and that's training to, get to that point. Yeah. But I'm wondering, maybe if you could speak to the importance of that, of being able to, I think there's so much stress around, is our company making enough money? And it's all stress based, rather than experiencing the joy that can come from the accomplishment that you may be, trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So
You
believe the importance, but what you believe to be the importance of that, and maybe a positive outcome that you've seen in some of your clients in their whole lives, including the job place, after they've worked with you. That'd be really
cool. Yeah. So what I would say is what I call alignment, which is just bringing your daily actions and choices into alignment with the things that are most meaningful to you. There's many stages and steps and levels in that, but that alignment is fundamentally the core of everything that all of us ever desire, whether it's better health, more energy, more vitality, better self-image, clear sense of purpose, more harmonious relationships, more money, more impact. The only thing that drives that ultimately is bringing your life into alignment. And so for companies that are not asking those questions about how can we bring our organization into alignment with something that's meaningful for all of us, there's a glass ceiling built in that they're never going to create that for themselves, their teams, or their employees. So
can I clarify for the listeners the glass ceiling? Because I know what you mean. Anne's talking about glass ceiling, meaning that you can only reach a certain amount of joy in your life or in your day, and then it's cut off.
Yes. Yeah. Joy, fulfillment, sense of freedom, sense of purpose, sense of waking up in the morning going, God, I love my life. You're not going to get there. That glass ceiling is built in.
And we cut it off, right? We cut it off, or the business cuts it off, or just.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for many people, they're barking up the tree, trying to get support, whether it's physical health or mental health, seeing therapists, going to doctors, trying to figure out, why is my body, my emotion, my mind not functioning properly? It's because you are not in an environment that allows your full life force to be expressed, period. You raise the lid of the pressure cooker, so to speak, you get yourself into alignment, and all of that, what I see as distorted energy, can flow again. And so many people I've had clients spontaneously lose weight up to 40 pounds in less than a year, just by getting their life in alignment with no diet change, no lifestyle change. It's just, how are we blocking our flow of energy? So whether it's weight loss or happiness or relationships, going from marriages on the verge of divorce, like this is never going to work, to, oh my God, we are more in love than ever. Thank you so much. I get the most profound thank you notes from people, because people don't come to me to work on those things. Those are side effects of bringing yourself into alignment.
Yeah.
So, I'm just touching on those because those are classically things that people think are problems, and then they go looking for the fix to the problem, but they're looking to solve the wrong problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
So within a business, just imagine how mind-blowing the effects could be if we worked with each individual within a company, brought them together, and those people just started getting into alignment.
Right.
And they were getting into alignment with each other.
Right. Now this, since I know you're talking about business, this excites me so much. I love working with business owners and people who are creating cultures, because really, if you have a business, you have created a culture or a microculture, which in my language, again, since I'm working with the quantum field, I call it your energetic container. And the care you bring to the container, that is the culture, makes all the difference. And so most business owners and leaders have been brought up in a paradigm that doesn't even know to think or ask those questions. So it's profit driven, it's efficiency driven, it's performance driven, which are wonderful metrics, but to nest that like a nesting doll inside of a larger egg of a caring container that really cares for the well-being of all. And so by that, I mean bringing the company's mission and purpose into alignment with, how are we really serving our planet, our society, a bigger why, first of all. How does our team environment of our employees now, how does that align with a bigger mission for all of us? How can we create well-being for everyone? And then on an individual level, what does that look like? So you have to really start from the top down to nest it. And then within that, I have 3 different levels of play that I teach to executives and business owners and culture creators, because you have to have the 3 tiers that allow for sustainable change. Otherwise, each one is just going to be a Band-Aid. You have to have all 3. So there's a definite method to the madness, but when you're starting to talk about play and joy and fun, it's more than just like, hey, we're going to put a pool table in the break room. That doesn't do it. Like, we have to have an understanding of creating flow states. What are the environmental conditions that create flow states? How can we enhance that creativity, and so on? So we're kind of getting ahead, but I love the topic. So we've opened up a lot of doors.
I know, me too. So I want to ask you a little bit more of a personal question, Anne, because I think, it's one thing to listen to people talk about these things, but it's another thing to know where you came from, because you weren't always in this leadership position, this place, and we have all experienced hurt and pain, and some of my viewers will be experiencing that right now and going, what flow state, I can't get there, like this, you're crazy talking, So tell me a little bit about your story and your journey, maybe the turning point or the thing that drove you. There's always got to be a driver behind such dramatic change. And then wanting to help other people get there. What was that thing, or what was that low point in your life that?
Which one? It's a series. For most of us, it's not just a single thing. But so what I'll say is years ago when I was heavily skydiving, that was my life. Every weekend I was out jumping every weekend, and I got to be really good friends with my circle of friends. And I met my husband at the time through skydiving, and we moved out here into the Rocky Mountains, and most of our skydiving buddies were still back east. And so I had a really good friend, like my former husband and I, and our friend Patrick were like, tight. We were really tight. And so we moved out here, but we still talk to Patrick at least once a week on the phone. And we're just, really close friends. He was a master level skydiver. He had thousands of skydives. People looked to him for expertise, instruction. He was just top of his game. And one weekend, the phone rang and the voice said, yeah, Patrick's dead. And it turned out that a freak accident was just a burble of wind coming over the runway. He was coming into land under his parachute. It was not equipment error. It was not user error. It was truly a freak accident. Oh. And the wind just, there was just the right turbulence that collapsed his parachute. Oh. And he fell about 100 feet and landed right on the runway on the tarmac and smashed his skull open. So that was the first time I'd lost somebody really close to me. And, from that, just all the stages of grief, despair, shock, all of it. But the key turning point here was two things. When, I guess the story is actually quite long, but the nutshell version of it, I'll say, but there's so many nutshells. Anyway, in that desperate grief, my heart being ripped open, just sobbing every day, like how is this possible? And also realizing he died, I didn't. Mm-hmm. That could have just as easily been me.
Yeah.
And so I was very much confronted with my own mortality, because I saw people, creating comments for his memorial service. And part of me wondered, what would they be saying about me if I died? Am I happy with the life I've lived? And I didn't like the answer. I did not like the answer. I was not okay with the life that I've lived. And I wanted something to be different, and I didn't know what. Simultaneously in there, in the depth of grieving, my former husband was the executor of Patrick's will. So he flew back east to start taking care of it. And we lived way out in the country, really isolated, beautiful country home, but I didn't have neighbors. I was still new in the area. I didn't have a lot of friends or community. So I felt deeply alone. And suddenly my dearest friend is gone. And now my husband is also gone, physically taking care of that. And I'm alone in the house, just feeling so sorry for myself and grieving and, just sobbing, blubbery tears. And I thought, I got to at least do something. Let me just pull myself up and go get the mail. And the setup here is that every week when I talk to Patrick on the phone, we had this running joke, because at the time I was much more of a control freak. I was not as relaxed and fluid as I am now. So I was more uptight. I'm a Virgo, kind of meticulous. And he knew that I did not want dogs in my house. Like, I was not a dog person. And so once he found that out, his style was just to find the holes in your armor and poke, poke, poke. So every week on the phone, he'd say, you just wait, I'm going to send you a dog. And I'd, of course, go, no, I don't want a dog, no. And it was just this standing joke. It was just a running joke. But it happened every single week. And so the last conversation I had with him, he said, you just wait. One of these days, you're going to open up your front door and there's going to be a box full of puppies on your porch. And I'm like, that's not even funny,
A friend like that, right? That just pushes the boundaries, pushes us out of our comfort zone. We all need a friend like that.
So those were the last words I heard from Patrick. And now it had been about a week since I talked to him. Now he's dead. My husband at the time is gone. I'm bawling and blubbering on the couch. I decide to go get the mail, and I open up my front door, and there is a puppy on my doormat.
What?
Serious.
So he did that before he.
Well, that's what I was like. Well, how could? What just happened? Did he?
Yeah, I'd be going, oh, this is freaky, man.
Did he send, like, what just happened? And it wasn't like I had neighbors. It wasn't. There was no sign. There was no tag. It was nothing. So the mystery presented itself. The plot thickens. How do I explain this? Because at the time I had no spiritual awareness whatsoever. I didn't have any concept of where do you go after you died, and none of that. My only reality was, this is reality, what I can touch and see, that's it. And so how do I explain this? Because it's almost like Patrick sent me a dog, but he's dead. But
Yeah.
how could this happen? It's not,
Yeah.
I don't think he sent it before he died. How do I explain this? Woo, right?
Yeah.
And so what that did was it catalyzed the big questions for me. Where do you go after you die? Is it possible that there's something else going on that I don't know about? I don't know, but this is kind of a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
And from there, it just opened up my inner existential questioning on top of confronting my own mortality about what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so step by step, that's been almost 15 years ago now, but it's led me on this path. And then 10 years ago, there was another major rock bottom story when my marriage was falling apart. It's a whole other tale, but Quantum Play has been birthed, and all of my life has been birthed from the low points as slingshots, because I chose to be in the low points with, how do I make meaning of this?
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life? I want to create something more empowering, and kind of clawing my way out of a pit of dark despair, because from that place, I hated my life so much. I hated myself so much. I hated everything I'd created so much at the lowest point after Patrick died, that from the low point, I just knew, I don't even know what joy is. I don't even know what that would feel like. But now I've heard of it because some, books started falling off the shelves. I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
I don't care what it takes. I want that more than anything, because I've got a PhD in depression. I've got a PhD in hating myself in my life.
Yeah.
I'm done. I want that. And so the drive has come from that.
Yeah. What that one thing, because I know there's people going to be watching who are in that place now.
Totally.
And they're completely in despair. And no matter, even if they watch this today, they're going to shut it off because that can't be me. What is the one thing that sets the people apart that do what you've done to the people who stay in the despair and the depression and the sadness, because it's serving a purpose in their life? But what do you think? Like, what is the one thing maybe? And what, if you could give those people one piece of advice, one thing they could do to get themselves out of that place so they can find, whatever their purpose is as well, what would you say?
I'd say spend some time every day touching or journaling. What do you most desire? What do you most desire? What do you want more than anything? Because one of the functions of that negative spiral is only focusing on what you don't want, which just blows it up. And part of the pattern that's in place is that through life experience, through trauma, through setbacks, betrayals, through cultural conditioning, we've all been to some extent programmed to not tune into what do you desire.
Yeah.
How often do you have people waking up every day saying, I want to know, tell me about your dreams. I want to know what you desire.
No.
Our society is not built for that. And so it's a skill set that has been eroded to the point of almost being extinct. And for the people who are suffering most, certainly that's where I was. I was completely disconnected from what do I want, because I didn't feel I had a right to have a desire, because why would I? Nothing ever works out for me anyway, all of those glass ceilings. At some level there's unworthiness. Well, I don't think I'm worthy of having anything I desire. There's the past evidence of what last time I went for what I wanted. Look how that worked out. I'm not going to get hurt again, so I'll just shut it off. So we suppress our own desire, and it's reinforced by our environment. But touching that and just even spending 5 minutes with, can I even touch what do I desire, in journaling or reflection, and just letting yourself breathe and ask, really, what do I want more than anything? Because ultimately it's that connection with desire that's the only thing that's going to give you the fuel to pull yourself out. But if you're not touching it yourself, it won't become available. But ultimately there has to be the moment that you decide and you draw a line in the sand that says enough. And for many people, sometimes I say, like, you haven't suffered enough if you're not ready to cross that line, because that's been what it takes for me, even today, 15 years later, when I'm noticing I'm facing change, like, oh, some part of me is not actually committed to that yet. Oh, I clearly haven't suffered enough, because when it gets bad enough, I will be motivated to change, you know.
It's important to realize that too.
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
I think you're totally right. The way I relate to that story is not suffering enough, or that moment, you know, that you make a decision. At one point in my life, I was bulimic, and you know, I'd been doing this to myself for a long time, and you're gonna laugh, and you know, people may relate to this, but I was studying psychology at the same time.
I get it. Totally.
Knowing how bad it was for my body, knowing that this was going to have negative effects and not help me lose weight anyways.
Exactly.
And I was doing it until one day, I don't know what it was, but maybe I'd suffered enough. And I was wrapped around the toilet and I said, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Don't ever do this again. You're never going to do this again. And I've never done it again. And that's probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's that thing, and you have to get to the point. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's your focus. And if you keep focusing on that thing, that's where you will stay. But if you're able to shift your focus, and I think what you're saying is the one little piece of advice might be just think about one other thing for one day, and then the next day. And
or
then,
even 1 minute.
Or a minute.
Right. Right. Start where you are.
Have one thought that's different than what your habits and your addictive thinking is used to.
Yeah,
exactly. Have one thought in another direction.
Yeah.
Because for some people.
Oh yeah, it's a function of habituated grooves in our neurology and our energy fields. It's just we're creatures of habit. We like to think that we're all sovereign and have free will, but no, we're just a bundle of habits. It's just most of them have not been created consciously or lovingly. But when I look back at, you know, the next jumping point for me was several years after Patrick died, and now my marriage had gone to hell. Because we both lost our dearest friend and we were on different paths, and it was really, really stressful. And there was a moment in which I realized I've just been in this loop of thinking about what's wrong with my marriage. What if I thought about what I wanted in a marriage?
Right.
I've never thought of that, right? You know, and that's just basic foundational level, but it did start to shift everything quickly. It didn't change my marriage, but it changed my way of relating to myself and my life and my possibilities, ultimately leading to a very different trajectory. So it's that shift, and it is possible, but it comes for everybody in your own timing. You just have to just trust the process, which I know feels impossible and feels like, you know, ridiculous when you're in that place, but your timing is something that's deeply aligned with the essence of you, and you're getting the lessons that you need in the moments that you need them, and your path is deeply trustable, even if it feels ridiculously awful right now. So I'm just off of that.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And we only become the person we're meant to become if we go through those difficult times. No matter how hard they are. So do you still skydive? This is a question I'm guessing a lot of people are wondering. I do, because I skydive as well. I'm not nearly as involved as you were, but I do skydive, and I'm just wondering what, and if you don't, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, right. So after Patrick died, I kept on jumping a little longer, but you know, where I moved, there wasn't a drop zone nearby, and I had decided to turn my focus to exploring the mountains and doing other things. But then after I got divorced and I had a baby, and now I was a single mom starting a business, and all of that journey, which was another series of low points of stress. But a friend of mine knew, my old skydiving buddy knew I wasn't using my gear, and he said, hey, could I borrow your gear if you're not jumping? I said, yeah, sure. So I shipped it to him, and a short time after, it all got stolen out of his car, and so I lost all of my gear. And that was like life just ripping my heart out and chewing it up. It was devastating because
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
a big part of my identity. But the reason I mention that is that at the time, I decided to take that as a sign that
Yeah.
life was inviting me to find my wings another way, because I had been only addicted to jumping out of airplanes and feeling free as a bird with all of this equipment. No, I didn't have the equipment, but I also was in a very different stage of my life of learning how to make my life feel like a skydive. How do you make your life feel like, I love this? And
Yeah.
so I decided to take that on as my quest, my odyssey, to just really embody that. And so I haven't skydived since then, but I have taken up wing walking, which ultimately was the whole reason I started skydiving in the first place, was because really I wanted to be a wing walker, but I didn't think it was possible.
Walking, like you walk on the wing, like.
Yeah. So there's a biplane with an open air cockpit, and you climb out of the cockpit, no parachute, just walking around on the wings. And I've got all sorts of choreography that I'm working up. It's
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm so happy hanging off the wing of a plane.
Baby, new wings.
New wings have come. New wings have come for sure. Yeah. So besides that, I love hiking in the mountains. It's just easy. I can do that on a regular basis. And I just got my son, who's now 11. I got him certified with his junior diver certification so we can go scuba diving together.
Which is, we're going to go scuba diving together sometime too.
Yes, exactly.
Totally are.
So I'm all about the adventures.
I know. I am too, but I don't think I've been on it. I haven't been as risky as, so I'm still getting there. I would take those risks, but we're running out of time. But I want to do my fast round questions with you, Anne. Okay. So it's 2 minutes. I'm just going to throw some questions at you. You can just answer them as fast and as best you can.
Okay.
All right, here we go. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were little? Did that make sense? When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I don't think you've really grown up that much, but.
Right. No, when I was little, my whole life was books. I was such a bookworm, a total introvert. So I wanted to be a librarian.
Interesting. I would never have guessed. Okay. I know. Who was your favorite teacher and why?
Oh man. What comes to mind is, what was that? Maybe my sophomore year in college. English literature. We were studying the Romantic poets, 19th century English poetry. And I just love the way my teacher brought it to life. I got lost in the English literature poetry, Wordsworth and Keats and Sir Walter Scott. Anyway, that was a magical class.
Nice. What's the best meal you've ever eaten?
Oh, I can't pick one. I am such a foodie.
I love it. Another thing we share in common. Okay, our favorite type of food.
Where do I start? I love food is literally orgasmic pleasure for me.
Oh, so that's awesome.
all things about fresh food that's prepared with creative, innovative ingredients and styles, just
especially in the country. I remember when very first time I had the Thai soup, the Thai coconut soup in Thailand, I also was like, whoa, this is like an orgasm.
Totally. And when it's fresh on the land, when I do think of when I've done joy retreats in Maui, for example, and we were just in this incredible location with Culinary Institute trained chefs, with raw food that was grown right there, a few feet from the table, and fish that were caught just a few feet from our table. It's the life energy that, it doesn't matter what's on the plate. It's all like, this is so good.
So good. Okay, we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, this is very pertinent now. What do you want to be remembered for?
Potent question. That whatever I created, whether by way of interactions or experiences or whatever I created by way of impact, or whatever you call that, impacted, like everyone who encountered me in any form felt more centered, more alive, more trusting of themselves and of life, and just deeply peaceful and knowing they're in the right place.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you've been watching here today, this is Anne Hart, who I'm speaking with, known as the Genius Whisperer, for her pioneering work in the field of human potential and applied neurophysiology over the last decade. So thank you so much, Anne, for joining me. I look forward to talking much more off camera.
Yes.
And if you want to find out more about Anne, can you just give us your website and where people can find you?
Yeah. Just my website is AnneRoseHart.com, AnneRoseHart. And so everything is there, all the social media links, everything else, but it's the easiest place. Go to AnneRoseHart.com.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. Bye.